CG like that. Are you kidding me? Yeah, are you kidding me? The Carlton gods must be crazy.
Well, hello and welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. It is always a pleasure to have you joining us, and it is a very special review episode this time around, obviously reviewing the round 19 game up against North Melbourne. Few key takeaways, of course, to discuss. Injuries, have we improved, ins and outs, all that sort of stuff. Looking ahead, of course, to the round 20 clash with Port Adelaide. But I am joined, of course, as you can see here on screen, by a very, very special guest. Someone I've been so keen to get onto my channel, whether it be the Supercoach Edge channel, for those of you that are familiar with that other channel, or even this channel. And I'm so rapt to have him on. And it is Janath, of course, from Third Man Up. Does some fantastic work as well with Spills and Supercoach with DR on his channel as well with a sword play potty. Janath, thank you so much for joining me, man. Really, I'm in awe. I'm in awe.
Oh, stop it. You're too kind, Damon. But no, I really appreciate it. Look, we were chatting offline before that. It's good to finally be able to chat Carlton with you, because I know we're both a bit nuffy in that area. So it'd be a good chance to just talk some footy, no nonsense, just straight into it with what was a pretty tense game yesterday. For periods of it, I was genuinely concerned, worried about what the outcome would be.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, wasn't it? And obviously at the game yourself, like me, and seeing it live, it was one of those things, wasn't it, where I don't know about you, but I kind of, going into this game, I saw it as an opportunity for a bit of a tune-up. I was like, coming in against a bit of a minnow, no disrespect to North Melbourne at all, because they've been playing pretty good footy, but, off a couple of losses that were kind of being exposed for, quite a few deficiencies defensively in the midfield. And I'm like, good opportunity, because I think if we were to face another team that kind of had their backs against the wall, they needed to win, like the Giants, like the Dogs, in order to sort of stripe their spot in the top 8, I would have been awfully worried. And I'm like, okay, playing North Melbourne, not too bad. But there was a couple of things that were a bit very, very, very dicey. So I guess before we delve into the full-on analysis and that side of things, let us have a look at the numbers. I know you're a numbers man as well, Janath, which I really do appreciate. So let's have a look and go through. Of course, the final scoreline was Carlton 16-11-107 to North Melbourne 14-4-88. So it was 27 scoring shots to 18, which North Melbourne, you would have noticed as well on the day, very, very accurate. And it was so frustrating. We were just missing things, and they were just kicking him out of their backsides, weren't they?
It was really interesting because I was watching the warm-ups, and I went with the North mate, and he was saying that they're kind of the side of a barn. Like, every single shot is sailing wide. And then the first quarter comes around, 3-1, halftime 9-1, three-quarter time 12-2, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? They just genuinely would have missed. But look, it was fair play to them. It was a brilliant game from them. And opposite to you, actually, Damon, you train as a minnow. I was actually probably quite concerned, a bit of both with how our form leading into the game, but also North's turnaround of form over the last 6 weeks, how they pushed Collingwood, they pushed Sydney for a little bit.
Yeah.
And if we didn't come out firing, which I would say we didn't, we would have our backs against the wall pretty quickly against a young side with good players. I think that's the big difference between North and a West Coast side, is that North is littered with talented players that on their day could take a game away from you. And I think we saw glimpses of that throughout the game, except they just couldn't put it together in the third quarter, luckily, because otherwise we would have been in big strife.
Yeah. As you said, like mentioning about the third quarter there, I mean, we piled on the 7 goals, 5, which we're very fortunate with, got us ahead by three-quarter time, and then was able to sort of, I guess, consolidate things and really hold on. But without that, it was looking, as you said, fairly dicey, because you were behind by almost, a couple of straight kicks and at halftime, and it didn't look good at all. There were a couple of things there where, full credit to, as you said, the youngsters for North Melbourne. Like, Sheasel was absolutely incredible. Isn't he just, for a second-year player, which I kind of forget that he's a second-year player, such is the quality of the lad, like, just absolutely incredible type stuff. Even McKercher, who, first year, he was actually in the latter
Tagged.
part of the game,
Yeah.
getting tagged by Chincotta.
Tagged.
I had to rub my eyes. I was like, what is going on here?
That's respect.
Yeah, because, I mean, going into the game, who would you have said that would have been tagged?
I would have gone. Let me put it from an analytical point of view first. I would have said that we were not going to tag because we only played 6 defenders. And then I
Yes.
looked.
Yep.
Then in the third quarter, we're looking. You got Matt Kennedy, a fullback, and you got Chair off a halfback. You're like, so we've gone structurally different, and that's look. Chincotta to a midfielder like an LDU would have made sense. He went to Bond the previous week and then switched on to Dale, but at the same time, like the team ins and outs didn't make sense at the time, and even now looking back on it, they still don't make sense. Like bringing in Durden, the one defender for Kemp, Marchbank, and Boyd.
Marchbank.
So 3 of them. Like there was
Yeah.
always going to be deficiencies down there.
That's what I thought as well. Like the previous video I did was obviously the preview video to this game, and I said the exact same thing. I was trying to work it out. I'm like, obviously 2 tall defenders in Marchbank and Kemp, Jordan Boyd, who run and gun, great by foot, all that sort of stuff. And looking at the ins, I'm like, well, we've also got Sam Durden, as you said. Outside of that, all these other guys, midfielders, small forwards, Cunningham can play out forward, push up sort of high half forward, Jack Carroll midfielder. I'm like, well, does that mean that Chincotta's going to go back into defence and play a role there, which he was named there? But yeah, it just didn't really work out that way on the day. It was very interesting, wasn't it?
It was very odd, and I'm not sure the premise behind it. Like Matt Kennedy, kudos to him because genuinely, like I think he's played about every position on the field.
It's so true, hasn't he?
I think he's played
including sub.
In the ruck at one point. He played in the ruck at one point, chopping out for TDK, and it's like, kudos to him, but we shouldn't be in this position. Like, we should have enough depth that we don't need to do this moves like this, and that's scary.
The one thing that I know, obviously the late change with Durden coming in, and we spoke about it prior to the record here, where he was very much touch and go. I think there was reports that Sam Durden had to get through final training unscathed and be at peak fitness in order to be cleared. And I'd actually heard that he didn't pass it. I don't know if there's any truth to that rumor or if it was just a rumor itself. But then to see that he was named, because Jack Martin actually came into the team originally on the extended bench, then he's removed when it was obviously whittled down to the final team. Durden appeared, and we're like, okay, what's the go there? But then it made me think, and I'm like, well, what's happened to Young? Like Lewis Young is he being put out to pasture like permanently now? It's what's the go there?
We'll talk about the game, Damon, but there was a specific point in the first quarter when Sam Durden had pushed so far up the field that Charlie Comben had got behind him, and Larky was on this side. Weathering was having to play in the middle of both of them, and as we know, the byplay between Nick Larky and Jacob Weathering is all time. Weathering hates Larky. Larky probably hates Weathering. Larky takes the mark, kicks the goal. Weathering is just here. He just absolutely punches his hand. He's so disgusted with himself. He's so disgusted with Sam Durden. And it really makes me think that this Kemp to the twos must just be a 1 week thing. It just has to be a wake up call, because if it's not, we're in serious strife down back.
Yeah. Well, it seemed that indication from Voss in his presser. He mentioned his presser prior to the game, of course, because he was questioned about the omission of Kemp, and he virtually was saying like he has a few things, like just paraphrasing it, a few things to work on, but he is a part of our team. Words to that effect. So it does sound as though that they're kind of, as you said, giving him a bit of a wake up call, because, I mean, looking at the way we've performed defensively over the past few weeks, obviously hasn't been up to scratch, but I'm like, is he just being used as a scapegoat, or has he been that bad? I don't think he's actually been absolutely terrible, but I mean, there's deficiencies that he's kind of shown time and again that it does make sense that he's kind of been given a bit of a tap on the shoulder.
Yeah. That's probably the best way to phrase it.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at the game and the breakdown in stats a little bit closer, and we'll have a chat about Things that we were hoping to see fixed heading into this game, compared to what we'd seen over the past couple of weeks, where we've obviously fallen short of the Dogs and the Giants, and even the first half against Richmond. Prior to that, we did look a little bit rusty. But as you can see here, just a breakdown of disposals. In terms of stats, North actually did pretty well. Like, if you're looking at that, you're like, they pretty much matched us, like for like, disposal-wise, did pretty well. Efficiency inside 50, as you can see there, was the major discrepancy, 50.9% our way to 37.5. Hit-outs, that was probably, in terms of the breakdown of stats, that was the one big discrepancy, but TDK was off for a little bit, as we know now, for quite reasonable reasons, for a couple of injuries that he sustained, but we had to throw Harry into the ruck as well. And as you mentioned earlier, we even had Keno in the ruck, which is hilarious. And I think he gave away a free kick just because he was so small. And it was just holding on to Cherry. And I'm like, mate, I don't blame you. It'd be virtually like me up against him in the ruck.
Oh, dude.
So, yeah. So, I mean, full credit to Cherry as well. He's in his first full season at North Melbourne as the number one ruck. He's looked really, really good. And he's that sort of player. I think he's heading into the game, he was averaging over 7 tackles a game, which the next best was Grundy at just, I think it was like 5.2 per game. So he's that sort of, mobile ruckman, like a TDK, but goes the extra mile, loves to get his hands dirty. And yeah, we saw that obviously on the day as well. So very, very dominant. In terms of clearances, looks pretty even enough. Moving down to the possessions, even again, thereabouts. The one thing I actually tweeted at halftime,
yep.
The uncontested side of the game, that it's been a worrying trend over the past couple of weeks. I'll have to bring it up on my phone, but in terms of what it was, but I think it was around about 60 disposals was the discrepancy between our uncontested compared to theirs. And that, I guess, is like a really nice snapshot of how unaccountable we've been defensively across the park. And I know we've been exploited in the midfield as well, because we've kind of just been automatically running towards our goal, like, oh, we're going to get the footy. And then next minute turn around and, our opponents burst through the middle and hitting up Ugle-Hagan, as we saw the previous week. What did you observe yourself, Janath, like in terms of whether it be in the middle or around the ground, how we set up? I mean, we obviously tightened things up as the game went on and we're able to wrestle back momentum, but did that stick out to you in terms of the uncontested side of things?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things that we're not really privy to is the pressure rating. And I would, if I was to hazard a guess, I reckon our pressure rating in the first 2 quarters was very, very low. And you could really see you could really tell when the pressure lifts, because you have multiple players attacking the one ball. And in the first 2 quarters, I didn't see that. But in that third quarter, and it's no coincidence that that's when we score most, because when you put more pressure on, you're more likely to cause a turnover, you're more likely to get the ball moving in your half instead of just thinking the ball's going to go forward. Because in the first half, I was thinking, we're either going to win the centre clearance and get it straight up into the forward line, and we're not scoring here. Like, it's pretty bad to think that way. One of the big discrepancies I saw, this was even strong into the fourth quarter. I reckon that marks count is actually quite skewed, because for most of the game, it was North had about 90 marks, Carlton about 45. Like, they were doubling their marks, and a lot of that was uncontested. So to your point, Damon, like they were controlling possession of the ball, and we were just hoping that they would turn over, as opposed to actively trying to get the ball off of them using the pressure game.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I found the tweet that I put out at halftime. So it was 26 marks our way, and they had 63. So it was pretty. I mean, as you can see there, it's kind of a similar sort of margin there at the end. So yeah, it's very much, and contested marks as well. I found that even the previous couple of weeks have been outmarked. And the one thing that really is irking me is, and we can probably talk about individual players from here on as well as a bit of a segue, but our delivery to Charlie. And I know Charlie's been out of form, and I think a lot of people have been quite vocal about him, but he's been so consistent for so long. I think he can probably afford to have a couple of off games. People forget as well, he actually rolled his ankle prior to the GWS game and was very much touch and go for the game against the Dogs as well. And And I think it was even the game back when we first played North early in the year, he actually rolled his ankle then. So, I mean, he does have he's banged up a bit, I guess you could say. But the one thing that I guess you can't just solely blame Charlie, it's the way that we've been delivering to him. A lot of these high up and under kicks, and I know a lot of time it's like we're under pressure, and it's like, oh, well, we'll bomb it in, we'll get it inside 50, that counts. But kicking onto the head of Charlie, who's being double teamed, sometimes triple teamed, he's not the sort of player in the same mold as a Harry. You do that to Harry, sure, he'll probably take a mark, one every 3 times. But with Charlie, he's being manheld, he's being grabbed, jumper stretched, not getting free kicks, which is quite hilarious because a lot of people are like, free kick Charlie, but it's quite the opposite. But Charlie's obviously the sort of player, use his burst off the mark, his speed, just out in front, hit him on the tit, and he'll mark pretty much 9 times out of 10. The delivery to Charlie, I don't know what the instructions are, but it's not working. And I think that was when we kind of broke through in this game in the third quarter, and Charlie was starting to kick goals. We were kicking to him on the lead, and I'm like, fantastic, for sure. Like, finally come around. It's like we'd had some sort of awakening, but there's only small snapshots of it happening, and I can see us going back into that kind of lull of just bomb it in. Don't worry, it's all good. Just bomb it. I don't know. Did you notice anything in terms of our forward 50 entries?
Yes, I think that was it didn't quite remind me of like 22, 21, but there was a lot of times where we got the ball in and we're kicking it to the outnumber. Like we're not really looking to isolate these players at their best, sort of like Charlie on the lead. Like I think that this is something that Charlie's sort of taken out of his game for whatever reason it is, but he's not going so much on the lead. He's more so waiting for that high ball and the sort of the Hail Mary sort of mark. One of the things that I also think's been a bit structurally different is that Charlie's been playing as sort of the deepest forward. I don't think he's really suited to that role. He sort of needs to be up the ground, getting the ball and using his kick in. Like one of the things that comes straight to my mind is the Gold Coast game last year. And he marked the ball around the interchange or between the arc and the centre square, and he pinpoint lasered it straight to Harry, where Harry didn't even have to take a step, and he's running straight into goal. Like, utilising that ability is something that I think we just got to do more of. Like, obviously, we're not coaches, but there must be something that the coaches have seen to switch those two roles around. Maybe it's that Harry needs to push up stoppages more to be that second ruck, but yeah, it's just something that I thought that we could have utilised more against Logue. Coming back first game, just move him up the ground. Don't let him stay at home so much, but where's probably more comfortable.
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's a very good point. I mean, we've seen kind of Harry in that role where he's pushed up the ground as a high half forward, even up to the wing, and then sort of rolled back where like Charlie's been one out. And you're totally right. You kind of... we obviously we know being baggers men, but like with Charlie, his strength is obviously he's a great mark, but aerobically the way that he moves around the ground just to I guess expose his opponent. Griffin Logue was playing on him. I don't think he's got the aerobic capacity like Charlie to match him for that.
No
and I'm
way.
kind of like, why wouldn't they use him, push him up the ground as you said, and it kind of like a double-edged sword. You're obviously using him to sort of lead into space, and if he's not, getting the ball on transition, get him to push up the ground and then switch back. And at least we've got Harry down there deep, who, if you want to kick it on his head, he's that sort of player. He's got the bulk, got the muscle, traditional forward, Plugger-esque. He'll mark overhead. That's fine on top of his head. That's no worries at all. But totally right, and that's something that it stuck out to me and left scratching my head. When, as you say, we're not coaches. Maybe we should be, but I mean. I've seen that used in the past, and as you said, the Gold Coast game is one such game where it's evidence that it can work.
It's really even in the finals. I think even that where Charlie, I think it was a kick to Owies in the Sydney elimination final. Like kicking him as a field kick is an asset that we need to use, especially when we are struggling to get good, effective kicks into our forward 50.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Great observation. And I guess now we'll kind of have a look at the takeaways in terms of the inclusions that we had. So we'll just go quickly to the lineups here. And there were quite a number of players that were banged up as well, of course. I spoke about Sam Durden. He came in. I don't know. I mean, is it like one and done type thing? Like, with Brody Kemp, can he come back in?
Has to
Is it
be.
just
Has to be.
yeah? I think Durden, he was struggling to move. He kind of looked like me with my lower back stiffness that I get every single morning, get out of bed, feeling like an old man. And I'm like, geez, if we had someone else, like another tall defensive option, I think he would have been subbed, but couldn't do that because we needed him to play. Jesse Motlop, of course, absolutely incredible.
Brilliant.
Really did warm the cockles of my heart just to see him come back and, I guess, perform on his first game back, because he seems to me like the sort of confidence player that needs to have a bit of confidence behind him, and then he'll start to snowball and get a few bags in his kit. How did you rate Mott's game?
He's going to be an important commodity at the underline, because like small forwards that can kick goals just don't grow on trees. And I think that Motlop really has, like, he's a low possession, high impact player. And we saw in the semi-final against Melbourne, the goal before Aikes' one. Like, if Motlop doesn't kick that, we're not winning the semi-final. And he's got that X factor. Like, he knows where to crumb the ball. He's not going to get many opportunities a game, but if he can do what he did on the weekend, where he makes the most of those opportunities, he's going to be brilliant. And the crowd love him. Like, just hearing when his name was called out the first time, number 3, Jesse Motlop, like the crowd was fanatic, because, like, I think he brings something to this team that we've been lacking in terms of forward pressure. And look, if we can get Williams and Motlop in the same side, I reckon that's good. Motlop, Williams, Owies, and Fogarty, those 4, I reckon that's the core 4
perfect
right
combo
there in terms of small forwards, because they all bring something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like, I think Fogarty's kind of been that man who's been flying the banner as a bit of that pressure player. We know, like, he's absolutely fantastic. Number 1, when it comes to his tackling pressure and just pressuring the ball carrier more than anything when he doesn't have the pill in his hands. So, yeah, to have him, Zach Williams has been an absolute revelation up forward, as you've said, and Owies has had a career season. He's just absolutely incredible. I am just waiting to see him an announcement of him being re-signed, because
has to.
He's just, and I know, like, he doesn't. He loves he loves the tug of the jumper and the kiss of the emblem.
He gave it to Jack Fisher as well, I think. Like,
he did, yeah.
Fish, I think, kicked one out on the full or something, or did something. Like, it might have been when I always kicked the goal, and he goes straight up the Fish, and he's like, there you go, bang.
Yeah, just straight in his face, absolutely straight in his face. But yeah, as you said, that'd be absolutely incredible. George Hewitt played a really good game, I think, and really did identify, what we're kind of lacking, that defensive side of our midfield, and just around the ground, absolutely incredible, as we always know. Good pressure player. Cunningham was an interesting one, I think, in terms of inclusion. I was kind of surprised with his inclusion. Didn't have like a massive standout game run of form in the VFL to really warrant his inclusion. I don't mind it. And Jack Carroll, for me, I think I'm quite a fan of Jack Carroll, and showed some nice glimpses as well.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
But
some of the steps out of stoppage was really impressive, and that's sort of what we came to expect in this year. I think it was I think it's fourth year now, so he's got 3 years in the system already. So 4th year, it should really be sort of time. And he hasn't had the opportunities just because of the midfield we've had. But there was promising signs there that I think we should persist with him, even in a role as a sub. I think on Thursday, I reckon we could have seen what was going to happen. It was that Chera was going to go back. Now that we think about it, Carroll in, Hewitt in, no midfielders out. Like, someone had to go. Someone
has to go back. Yeah. What, just on that as well, what did you make of Chera playing that more defensive role? I mean, it was an interesting one. Personally, I don't know if I was a fan of it. I think, it's not obviously his one wood. But just to, I mean, that was obviously the plan from the get-go. They identified that and they wanted to pursue it, but I don't know. I just think it's virtually a waste, more than anything, and exposes us really, because, he's the sort of player where if he finds space, he's so clean with the footy, but under pressure, can tend to just bomb it long aimlessly and just kick it down the line. Like, it's not my responsibility.
I think it was a tale of two halves for Chera. The first half was quite, to put it nice, was quite abysmal from his standards because he wasn't defending, and something that sort of crept into his game. I'm not sure where it's come from, but he just gives the ball up. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't hold it in, but he just gives it up freely, and he can really squirt free. Not in the level like Ben Mackay on Friday night against the Crows levels, where he's just basically kicking the goal
Giving
for
the
them, but
footy.
he's like giving the ball away, and it's. But in the second half, one of the things that I saw was that he was probably one of the calmer heads in the fourth quarter. Got the ball to the right possession people, slowed the game down when it was needed. So look, I think we are wasting him more so for the fact that we can't use his pinpoint kicking inside 51. One of my favourite Chera highlights is in round 0 against Brisbane when he laced out Matt Kennedy off his left foot straight up into the pocket. That's the ball use that we were crying out for when we brought Chera to the club, and I can't see us persisting with him in a defensive role when Gov is back, Boyd's back, Kemp is back. Like, those three should be straight in this week. And if they're all healthy, there should be no reason why those aren't three failures. And Pitto with TDK out, obviously. Well, we got 4 ins basically in a winning side, so
Exactly right. Yeah, well, fingers crossed as well that Gov is fit to come back. But yeah, Boyd's going to be a big inclusion, and yeah, I don't mind. They've kind of tried something. I'm a massive fan because it does flirt with form, playing someone that isn't really familiar with, and I guess he hasn't played in that defensive structure with any of those guys, so they wouldn't know how he plays. He wouldn't really be familiar with how they play. A lot of it is based on intuition. Yeah.
I guess the other thing is that Chera isn't necessarily in form, so it's not like you're tinkering with his form in the first place because he probably needed. You can't drop him, and you can't make him the sub, so you got to play him somewhere. And I guess he was either the wing or the half back line to get some form, and maybe this is the circuit change that he needed. We'll see.
Yep. That's very true. Very, very true. We'll find that out in a few weeks' time. But in terms of, I guess, the ins and outs, we kind of touched on it there, but the injuries, and there were a few guys that were banged up as well. The first big one is obviously TDK, and that's going to, I know there's a lot of people I've noticed on Twitter have kind of been like, the sky is falling, we are done for, we're not going to win the flag, we're not going to be a chance of winning finals. People kind of forget that Pitnet is the sort of player that, yes, he's not in the same mold as a TDK, that he's mobile, can get around aerobically, and can do damage around the ground. But on his day, and he proved it against Richmond as the one-out ruckman, good old Pitbull, he was actually really good, had a really nice game. And I am still confident that he can help us. The sky would be falling if we had to rely on... it's O'Keefe and Oleg Markov and a few of the...
Oleg Markov.
Yep.
Oleg Markov. But
would be in trouble.
It's a great point you raised, because I think we've taken for granted that we actually have a very good backup ruckman, and the fact that we've been complaining this whole time that we don't want Pitto on the same side as TDK because it's going to mess with TDK's form. We never thought about it this way, where we're going to need Pitto net. Because you can imagine if we win a situation like Melbourne, when Max Gawn got injured and they didn't even have a backup ruckman.
Oh.
So it's like, that's the sky has fallen scenario that could have happened. So hopefully now Pitto, this is a good chance for him as well. I think building into finals, this is a chance to say, I'm here to stay hopefully I'm not that close later, so you can't jinx it too much, but in our week 1 final side.
Yep, exactly right. And best wishes to TDK. And for those people that haven't heard the news, of course, you probably would have, but he's got a punctured lung. And Mitch Cleary tweeted it out, and we're like, okay, well, that's pretty bad. But hopefully, he's got 6 weeks, including the pre-finals bye, to recover, come back for the first final. And then it came out with the following tweet. Oh, by the way, he's also got a fractured foot. Like, my God. So don't know what the outlook is. They're going to obviously assess him during that pre-finals bye and try and work out as to how he's recovering and go from there. But hopefully it's a case of like Collingwood last year, where they thought they were going to lose Darcy Moore and Nick Dacos for the final series, and they're able to make it back. So we'll just wait and see what happens there. But yeah, Pitt hopefully can come in and help us along our way. Outside of that, Walshy, he was looking very, very sore. Lower back my reserve seat is right near the bench, and could see him. He was running up and down, and he kept going back and like holding his lower back. And I'm like,
Oh,
please
no.
God, no, please don't. So I don't know if he's got any soreness or if he copped a whack or a hit or
Shaming or
something. I
something,
don't know. Yeah, but yeah, we'll see how he go. I mean, he came back on. He went off for a couple of times, came back on. But then again, so did TDK. We'll find out what's happened to him. But knock on wood, he is all good. But short turnaround in game as well. We are facing Port Adelaide, 5-day turnaround on Friday night. Do we look to potentially rest any players? Can we afford to? And what would the makeup of the side look like, apart from obviously big old Pitt coming in? Who else could we see making their way back in, do you think?
I think the other one, just very quickly, is Akers. So Akers was subbed
Yes.
out. I would imagine that he wasn't subbed out tactically, because you don't sub out a player like Akers that can run out a game tactically. So just wait and see what the prognosis is. They've heard hamstring, but nothing's been confirmed yet. It's very Carlton-esque, not confirm anything, not put on the injury report, and then there you go, he's not there on Thursday night. So
Exactly right.
we'll see what ends up happening. But look, I think the non-negotiables, if healthy, so this is all if healthy, I'd have TDK out, Pitternet in as an easy one there. Durden out, Kemp in. I think Kemp did enough in the twos. Saw enough from him to say, okay, that's your reality check, sort of thing. Gov in now. This is where it gets interesting, because you can tinker with some positions here. So I'd say Gov and Boyd both come in, because they're both best 22 players. Who goes out is the interesting one. I think Cunningham is probably a safe out, and move Jack Carroll into the sub role. Does this mean that Chera goes back into midfield, Boyd in, and then Gov probably comes in as well? And this is where it becomes who goes out. If it's Akers, you could go straight Akers out and move Cottrell onto the wing. You got Cottrell and Hollins on the wing. Or we saw a brilliant game on the weekend from Binsey Boy in the VFL. 47 touches, 3 goals. Don't mind if I do. Crazy.
Yep.
He's he only played a game as a sub. I'd really love to see a full game from him, but just with the talent that we have, and with the Camporelli boys coming in as well, we're going to have a dearth of talent on the wings for some time. So what do you have, Dame? What are your ends? Sorry, I've just rambled on there. So basically my summary, very quickly, is Pitternet, Gov, Boyd, and Kemp in for TDK, Cunningham, Durden, and Akers if he's injured. Move Carroll into the sub.
So the ins again were Boyd, Gov. So I'm just writing this down. Boyd, Gov, Kemp, Pitto. And
Pitt.
Yep.
So basically the opposite of this week. Bring in 3 defenders, take out 1.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true. I think, the squeeze is going to be on. That's the only question, is that obviously a couple more talls coming in off the back of, the one defensive tall and Durden. Depends on the matchups with obviously Port's forward line. And if we need to go in with another.
You really need to, because you saw what North Melbourne did. Clarkson saw the weakness there, that we only have Weither and Durden, and he straight away pulled the magnet to move Comben forward, because for most of the game it was Teakle the backup ruck on Newman or Kennedy, and you're like, this is a matchup they should exploit. Luckily they didn't, but a better team would exploit that matchup. Yeah,
like when they were lining up on each other, I was like, the height discrepancy is just out of this world. It was so obvious to see, and it's one of that. Yeah, they didn't try and exploit it a bit long. Just bomb it in Pagan's paddock style, and you just mark every day of the week. And we just left there scratching our heads. We'd almost need to have bloody Motlop on the shoulders of Walshy or something. But in terms of ins and outs, I think you've pretty much nailed it on the head. Hit the nail on the head, I should say. But if Gov isn't fit, I think he was a test heading into this game. If he's still not fit, I think we can expect to see Binsey potentially make, not his debut, but a bit of reward for effort. Outside of that, I mean, considering that the only other option we have is Lewis Young, do they go back to the well? They've overlooked him multiple times. We've brought Marchbank in. They've brought Durden in. Do they say, you know what, we're going to have to swallow our pride and give Young a bit of a crack just because we don't really have the depth defensively when it comes to tools to bring anyone else in?
That's a massive worry because just imagine how, not in no disrespect to Sam Durden anyway, but just imagine how bad Young must be in the VFL to be behind Durden in the pecking order now. So he was probably one of our first pick players a couple of years ago, not based on talent, but structurally. Yep. And now is sort of fourth in the pecking order as a key defender at the club.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? The fall from grace, because his first year with us looked absolutely incredible and signed the nice little contract, and now it looks as though they might be shipping him off. But you're totally right. And he's, again, that sort of player, I think, where he's a confidence player, and he would see that and he'd be like, go further into his shell, I think, more than anything. But, if push comes to shove, we need another defensive tool down back. They might need to rely upon him and go back to the well. But, ins and outs, I think you're totally bang on. Those are pretty much, I mean, there's forced outs with Akers, TDK, and Durden. But Cunners, I think, he's that sort of player where he's just unlucky. I think he's that sort of player where he might be able to pinch hit when he comes in, but just... unfortunately, I don't think he's up to the level. I would love him to because he's one of my faves. But totally right.
Very quickly, I've totally forgot Marchbank in this discussion as well. Like Marchbank's ahead of Durden and Young, so Young's basically fifth in that sort of key post. Would you bring Marchbank in above Kemp?
If it is, I personally prefer Kemp over Marchbank. I think they can be very similar in terms of their deficiencies, but and they're very much like Kemp. He's 100. When we talk about confidence players, he is right up there because so many times where if he starts the game with like a couple of consecutive errors, and he just literally physically drops his head, and I'm like, fuck. When you see that, you just know that he's just like confidence is gone, and I just hate to see that. And like, when he's playing a ripping game, he can mark anything and just reads the game, reads the play so well. So I'd prefer to see Kempy back in ahead of Marchbank. But comes down to if they want to reward Kemp and bring him back in and say like, all right, whatever he needed to work on in the VFL, if you tick those boxes, bring him in. Otherwise, do they go back and bring in Marchie if he's fit?
Be interesting.
Have to wait and see. Yeah, have to wait and see. But outside of that, looking ahead quickly to expectations for the Port game before we wrap things up and let you go. Of course, Janath, you've been absolutely incredible with your time, and it's been an absolute joy to be chatting about all things baggers with you. It's been a long time coming, really.
It has. It's been brilliant.
So with Port, obviously another team that where are they placed now on the ladder actually? Because they've kind of been a bit of Jekyll and Hyde. Just inside the 8, so it's almost another team backs against the wall. Need to win. So they're 7th at the moment on 44 points, alongside Geelong and the Giants. So in 7th on lower percentage. I might bring it up on the screen here if I can quickly bring that up. But again, like Port Adelaide, one of those teams where, as you can see here. I mean, we beat them at home. Can we do it again here? In terms of players to target, Chin-Cotter went to Butters last time. Did a half-decent job on him. Probably goes to him again, you'd expect.
Yeah, and that's where Boyd, McGovern become really important because when they're in, naturally you can free up Chin-Cotter to go do whatever role you basically want. And I think it's when you got Houston, Butters, you probably go to Butters in that instance because it's worked in the past there as well.
Yep, exactly right. In terms of their, I didn't see the ins and outs from the weekend, but I don't think there's any key players. So they've obviously
is the one. Just to monitor.
Yeah, he copped a bit of a. Was it a corky on the hip or something, or a hip pointer or something? They were saying
hip pointer was what they were saying. Don't know what it comes out as. But so it'll be quite interesting to see how all unfolds. They're better side now than they were when we played them the first time round. Willie Rioli is playing
Yes.
And I think they've got a better forward mix than they did.
Yep.
Because
Dixon Georgiades as well. Yeah.
Georgiades
Looked.
Georgiades played really well against us. I'd love for, if Dixon isn't playing, I'd love for Weathering to take Georgiades. Just
Yep.
really lock him down, because he kicked 4 on us first time round. It was just kicking them from the car park, kicking them from everywhere,
Wasn't
basically. He? Yeah. And realistically, if we can beat them on the road, I get we're on a 5-day break, but if we're genuine top twin, if you see that ladder, Damon, I think we're the cat amongst the pigeons, really. We're the Victorian side amongst all these interstate sides, and if we have to travel in the first week of finals, even if we get top 4, I don't see our chance of winning a premiership. It goes down pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we saw that last year as well. Obviously, just finishing outside, we had to win every single game to get through. But playing Brisbane in the Gabba, as we know, like that was always going to be a game where Brisbane came. Like we had a fast start, but for them to come back, it was like almost inevitable. Like we're playing them at the Gabba. I know that we beat them in round 0 or opening round, but we had to come back from 40-odd points down even then. And Brisbane, they've turned their form around. Despite the injuries that they've had, they're really, really good, and probably almost as potent as what Sydney have been up until, their 3-game sort of, losing streak, I guess, over the past 4 games. But yeah, you're totally right. We need to we're half a game, aren't we? Ahead, because Brisbane have that draw. So we're half a game ahead of the Lions in second place. So yeah, we need to hold on to this spot to get the home final advantage. That's for sure.
I think that Gold Coast game for them this week's massive one. No Harris Andrews as well. This is the game, I think. Can Gold Coast keep up their home form? That's the one that we hope they can, because we just need that little bit of breathing space. But even then, Fremantle is also breathing down our necks as well.
Yes, exactly right. And we've been very fortunate, I think, with the results falling our way. Like the Cats getting done by the Dogs on the weekend helped us. Essendon getting done, of course, by Adelaide at the death. And then even other teams that have kind of been, trying to force their way into the 8. Melbourne, Collingwood, as we know as well. They're very, very potent and always a danger. But it's one of those games where if we can win this, it's because we face St Kilda, Hawthorn, West Coast, is it?
Yeah, Collingwood, Hawthorn, St Kilda. It's Collingwood, Hawthorn, West Coast, St Kilda. So that Hawk game and the Collingwood game, there's just 3 massive back-to-back games that we have. Yeah. We just have to win. Have to win them.
Got to win them. Exactly right. The one thing that just to sort of round things out with the game against Port to come, and the one thing that I've been calling for, and the one thing that I saw make a return on the weekend, you would have seen it as well there live, but when we needed to sort of maintain momentum or wrestle it back into our favour.
Oh, I love it.
Charlie was thrown back as that loose man in defence, taking marks, and I'm like, praise be the Lord. Which again, because we're undersized, that was kind of another reason as well. And I'm like, it came a little bit later than what I probably would have liked, but considering that we needed to use Harry in the ruck at times and stuff, it was the fact that it happened. I was like, praise be the Lord.
Can I give you my favourite moment from the game? And I reckon you might know what it was. My favourite moment was when the crowd. So it was a number of things. Two very distinct players. Adam Sard is in his defensive 50. He taps the ball to himself, takes about 4 bounces, delivers it inside 50. Charlie can't get it. It doesn't end there because the ball comes down the other end.
Keep running.
And who do you know who lays the tackle? He's right there, bear hugging it. He got the biggest whoops. And then in the 4th, when he got that 50-metre penalty,
the goal, he was like 5 meters out in the woof. I was pissing myself laughing.
That was the longest 50-metre penalty I've ever seen.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
He
wasn't complaining, but yeah.
From like the wing. I'm like, how is that 50? It's like 80 meters.
Yeah.
and then the crowd absolutely going into like mayhem. It was like watching a Speed react, what I show Speed YouTube video, because they're all just barking their heads off. They were just whooping at Sardi at the end. It was brilliant. Oh my goodness. He is just a player that you just love to play for your club, because he always puts his whole
100%,
everything into it. Like doesn't leave anything in the petrol tank.
Yep, 100%. And the wolf was my favorite moment because then like it was like a bit of comedy, a bit of humor just to sort of take the stress levels out of things. And it's like, all right, we've got the game here. And the kick from like any time that he has like a chip kick that goes like even 5 meters, doesn't even make the distance, and it's play on, people are like, woof. Like, it's just the most ridiculous thing, but it amuses me every time.
It's funny you say that because so my girlfriend's family is now into footy, and she goes, they all go for Carlton now as well.
Classic.
And my girlfriend's cousin, when Sardi handballs it, is woofing as well. I don't think he understands what the woof is about. But
yeah, go with it. Just go with it. That'll be the next thing. Every time he disposes of it, just handball woof woof. I might actually try and do that. See, people around me are like, what the hell? What's this guy doing? He's an absolute maniac.
It is odd. It is odd, but we're behind it. We're behind it. We love it. Yeah. I love Sardi.
Absolutely. In terms of just to round things out for this game, Cripper was absolutely incredible for us. Sheasel was probably neck and neck with him for best on ground. Charlie was really good to see. Kicking a bag. Motlop we mentioned as well. Really good to see him kick 3 goals as well. Any other players that you'd like to give a shout out to? Sardi as well. Obviously you mentioned
Sardi was definitely one of. I think also Kennedy is very interesting because he's not necessarily stats wise, but the role that he plays within this team, I feel like we have to commend him week on week because otherwise, like he just
like the
plays
Swiss Army knife, isn't he?
Important role, yeah. And also George Hewitt should never be dropped again. Like you could just tell that even
100%.
Even when they were getting on top a little bit north in the midfield, like there was one player that you could rely on to sort of stop the flow, get that important tackle in, sort of stop it from breaking at the front of clearance, and that was Georgie boy.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Janath, for your time. You've I know we set a timer here of 30 minutes. We've gone over by 17 minutes, such is the amount of fun that we've been having. But really do appreciate your time, mate. And hopefully we can do this all again. Make it a regular thing. Whenever you've got time, of course, give me a tap on the shoulder. If I mind you, I probably won't stop pestering you from here on out. Just asking, you going to come on again? But no, really have appreciated joining forces as a fellow bagger and chatting about all things Carlton. So thanks again for your time.
Jeez, up 100%. And about, eh?
Wouldn't we be up and about? Wouldn't we be up and about? But yeah, hopefully we can consolidate our spot in the top 4. And
that's it. I think this is a big movement.
Yep, exactly right. And if we can get this win, it's going to just take the stress levels just down a little bit. And I think to me, it's going to probably say that we're kind of going back on course. You know, and yeah, it's a big game, I think. But if we can get the win, it's going to help us solidify that top 2 spot, and we'll be happy baggers, no doubt.
Happy baggers. Good weekend. We need it. You know, whenever you play on a Thursday, Friday, you always need that win to go in for a good weekend. Otherwise, you're already
sets the tone, doesn't it?
Pissy mood going into the weekend.
Exactly right. You don't want your bloody weekend ruined. But
before it began.
Yeah, before it began. Exactly right. You're like, God damn it, Carlton. That was an all too familiar sight for quite a few seasons. But the tide is turning, as we spoke about pre-record, and you can almost feel it. We've been through the down times, and it's within grasp, and we're ever so close, and we'll get there.
Come on, boys.
Easy, mate. Thank you again, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.